Hey, what's good, everybody? So, on this video, I'm going to talk about a topic that someone asked me about. They said, which country did I prefer? Did I prefer Kenya or did I prefer Uganda? So, I want to say this as a disclaimer. I liked both countries. I recommend both countries to any American or anybody who was considering going to Africa. I wasn't there a super long time, so I can't get into all the cultural nuances and some things I'm sure that I missed. But I'll talk about what I observed in the countries. So I'll say from the gate, you're going to notice that Kenya is a lot more expensive than Uganda. Prices in Kenya are almost comparable to American prices. Now, it's not going to be as expensive as, say, in New York or LA or something like that, but if you're from maybe a smaller American city like maybe Memphis or uh, somewhere in North Carolina or something like that, you're pretty much going to be paying the exact same prices. You're not going to see a big discount. I know. A lot of Americans think, oh, it's Africa, they poor over there. It should be cheap. The US dollar is strong. Well, it doesn't always work like that when you look at exchange rates and things like that. Don't expect like you're going on vacation to Mexico or some really cheap country or Thailand or Cambodia or something like that. In Kenya, you're gonna pay normal prices. You're gonna pay pretty much US dollar prices, especially if you are expecting US quality services. Like if you're going to a fancy restaurant or something like that, you're going to pay pretty much what you would pay in the States. If you want to stay in a really nice hotel, it's going to be very comparable, maybe $10 less, a little bit less, but it's not going to be a lot cheaper. Now, with that being said, quality is going to be high typically when you're paying US prices, you're going to get close to US quality for services. So it's going to be a very nice restaurant. Everything's going to be brand new. Sometimes I would be in some of the restaurants in Nairobi, and I'd be like, shit, it looks like I'm in Miami or something like that, or Las Vegas. Like some of the places, I don't know if they just built them in the last 2 or 3 years, but it blew my mind. I was like, shit, I could take a picture of this place that I'm in and post it on Instagram or send it to somebody, and they'd be like, "Oh, I know you were in Miami," or "I didn't know you were out in Vegas," and this is in Africa. They're really doing big things in Nairobi. I think the economy is growing right now. Very modern downtown in the upper class areas. In Nairobi they have more of a big city mentality, and the girls they're not gonna be like Western girls exactly, but you can see they're going more in that direction. So yeah, they're a little more strong-willed, I would say, than you might expect. Not that there's anything wrong with them. They're really cool girls. Still going to be very refreshing and laid back if you're coming from somewhere like London or you're coming from New York or something like that. They're definitely not on that level yet. Um, but I think they're trying to be more independent and a little more career oriented than you might expect. Compare that with Uganda, it's going to be a lot different. So Uganda is cheap. It's a lot cheaper than Nairobi, a lot cheaper than Kenya overall. Uh, just to give you an example, like a Uber ride is only going to cost you maybe $3 or something like that. Especially if you're only going, I don't know, 10, 15 minute Uber ride, expect to pay like $3 or something like that. They have Uber in Kenya too, and it's cheap, but it's not that cheap. So I was basically moving around with Uber every day in Kampala just because it's a cheap option, and I didn't want to waste any time because I wasn't there for that long. So it just made the most sense to get around the city. I did try to use the bodas, which are the motorcycle taxis. I did that just because it's a cultural experience and I wanted to do it. uh, they have something similar in some Caribbean countries like Dominican Republic, where You just hop on the back of the moto concho is what they call it. So yeah, I definitely saw those kind of routes with Africa and the Caribbean. But anyway, I rode on the buses too, but I would mainly stick with Uber if I was doing things because it was crazy cheap. Um, I went to a sauna when I was in Kampala. Got a massage, got a relax, sat in a jacuzzi and steam bath, all that kind of stuff. Very very cheap in Kampala. I don't see how anyone coming from a Western country could come to Uganda and complain about the prices because everything was priced very very well. Uh, Speaking to the women in comparison to Kenyan women, I'd say the Ugandan women are a lot more laid back. They're more traditional. It would seem they show a lot of respect to men in general. And I've seen different articles of Kenyan men writing about this and saying when they get a chance, they get on a plane or a bus or whatever, and they go over to Uganda because the Ugandan women treat them a lot better than the Kenyan women will, which is pretty interesting to see that dynamic even in Africa, because in Europe a lot of Western European guys they will go to Eastern Europe because the women are more feminine, more traditional in their opinion, and in America the opposite. We go south to Latin America or something like that because we feel the women are maybe different or more traditional than they are in America. So you even got that dynamic going on in some parts of Africa. Beyond that, I'd say the Ugandan women, if you prefer women that are real curvy, real thick, you're going to find more of those in Uganda than you will in Kenya. Now, hold up, hold up. I'm not trying to offend anybody who's Kenyan right now. You will definitely, definitely see some Kenyan women that are uh, endowed with nice attributes in that area physically, but you just don't see it as often in Kenya as you would see it in Uganda. And I don't think that's controversial at all. I think any Kenyan would agree with me if he's been to both countries. He'd say, yeah, the Ugandan women, man, they on a different level as far as thickness. If you really like thick women, you're gonna find more in Uganda than you will in Kenya. Now, also another interesting comparison between the two countries is I noticed a lot more foreigners in Kampala than I did in Nairobi. Maybe there were a lot in Kenya, in Nairobi, in areas I didn't go to, but I'm just speaking off what I saw. So in Kampala, you'll see restaurants that are Lebanese. You'll see a lot of Ethiopian restaurants, Eritrean restaurants. You'll see what other country? Sudan. I saw a ton of Sudanese in in Kampala, and you can definitely tell the difference between a Sudanese and a Ugandan or Kenyan just by looking at them. Like they look very different. Black people do not all look the same, and Africans do not all look the same. Even beyond North Africa, South Africa, or whatever. Yeah, there's huge differences. Like the Sudanese people, they're a lot taller on average, and very dark skin, very dark. So they would stick out, and I would notice them when I was going around in Kampala doing things. And I didn't really see as many obvious foreigners in Nairobi as I did in Kampala. Now, Chinese, I feel like I saw more Chinese as well in Uganda than I did in Kenya. So overall, I think you're gonna see more diversity in Kampala. That was my experience. Another thing, because of the diversity that I was talking about, when I was in Kenya, I noticed I stood out even more. Even though I'm obviously black, I'm a black American, they could tell I wasn't a local. And I don't think it was just the hair. Obviously, most Kenyan men they have really short hair, so the hair made me stand out from the gate. They knew, this guy, he's probably not from around here. But I would get stares. I would be walking around the city in Nairobi, and people would just be staring at me. So I don't know if like the hair they associate that with drugs or maybe some foreigners from Uganda or some other country. But yeah, I would get a lot of stares. Nothing bad, like nothing weird, not nothing too weird, but I would get stared at. So I knew that these people can tell I'm not a Kenyan. Like no one came up to me and was like, "Are you Kenyan American?" or anything during my stay there. Now in Uganda, because I said there seems to be more diversity, there's Africans from other surrounding countries, I imagine, who are living in Uganda. Not that there aren't in Kenya as well, but I felt like I ran into more of them when I was in Uganda. I didn't stand out as much. I would see Ethiopians on the street who look a little more similar to myself. I would see African guys with longer hair like me. So I didn't get the stares. I didn't feel, as much attention on me just going around my business. I think they knew I wasn't local, but they're just probably used to seeing other kinds of Africans. So I didn't get any bad attention or just whatever attention. But in both countries, I want to say that people were very friendly. They were ready to embrace Black American, and they had a lot of questions because they really don't meet too many Black Americans. So every time I went to the bar or something, would have drinks, I would meet groups of people, and they would invite me in. So had amazing experiences there. So no complaints. Um, I think that's it. Those are the main differences I noticed between both countries. So the short version is Kenya, more expensive, but more modern. So you're going to have more US level type services and a little bit more developed downtown. And some of the services I would say are probably a little bit uh, better in Kenya. And the women a little more independent, but still, you're gonna find beautiful women there, um, like you will in any African country. Now, Uganda, short version, a lot cheaper than Kenya. Maybe not as developed in so many areas, but very friendly people and very thick women. If you like really thick chicks, you're gonna be in heaven when you get to Uganda. Um, The only other thing I didn't mention was safety. I'll say it felt a lot safer in Kampala than it did in Nairobi. And I even spoke with Kenyans and Ugandans about this, and most of them agreed. They actually have a nickname. So, yeah, they call it Nairobi because a lot of people be getting got in Nairobi. Like, late at night, if you're by yourself, they'll just, I guess, roll up on you, pull out a knife, pull out something, and be like, hey, give me everything you got, especially in the downtown of Nairobi. They say it's not safe at night. Me, I'm crazy though. I was in Nairobi downtown by myself late at night. I didn't have any problems, but I could see how problems could happen. I seen a lot of, shady looking dudes kind of like eyeing me up and down and shit like that in the center at nighttime. Now in Kampala, I was by myself at nighttime and I never had that same kind of feeling. Like people kind of were going about their own business. And I'll say that people in Kampala are very, very polite. I was surprised how polite people were there, which is amazing. Um, yeah, I think I covered everything between the two countries. I know as soon as the video goes off, something else is going to come to me. If you have some questions about which one you prefer or which one I preferred or something along that nature, comparing the two countries, hit me up. Don't be afraid to write a comment. All right, that's it. Like, comment, subscribe. Holla